I had never expected that one moment could change everything. It was a typical Wednesday afternoon, sunlight pouring through the windows, casting a warm glow across the kitchen as I busied myself with the day's routine. Daniel, my husband, was at work, and our little boy, Max, was playing with his blocks in the corner, his giggles filling the quiet space of our home. The life we had built together felt secure, fulfilling. Stable, even. We had our ups and downs like any marriage, but we had each other, and that was all that mattered. I was in the middle of making lunch when I decided to run a quick errand. Max was happily occupied, and Daniel would be home soon, so it seemed like a good time. I put on my jacket, grabbed my keys, and left the house, stepping into the world outside, where everything felt the same as always. The quiet streets, the hum of cars, the familiar faces at the market. It was on my way out of the grocery store that I saw him. Liam. I nearly bumped into him as I turned the corner by the vegetable aisle. My heart skipped a beat when I saw his face, that same face I used to know so well, sun-kissed skin, messy brown hair that always seemed to fall in his eyes, and those mischievous green eyes that used to make my heart race. He hadn't changed much. Maybe a few more lines on his face, a bit of a rougher edge, but underneath it all, it was Liam, the boy I had once loved so deeply, the boy who had taken up every inch of my teenage heart. Welcome to Anonymous Stories. Over here, we narrate stories we receive in our mail from people all over the world. Today, we share a story from one lady from London. The names used are not the real names of the individual characters. Support us by subscribing to our channel, like and share this story with your friends and loved ones. Now let's get into the story. For a moment, I froze, caught in the surreal shock of seeing him after all these years. Sophia? His voice cut through the silence, and I felt the walls around me crumble just a little. He smiled, the same crooked grin that used to drive me wild. Liam, I whispered, not quite sure what to say, not knowing whether I should hug him or step back. There was something about seeing him again, after all this time, that left me breathless. He looked just as surprised as I felt. I can't believe it's you. It's been what, 8, 10 years? I nodded, suddenly feeling like a teenager again. Time felt like it had folded in on itself. The years between then and now felt like nothing at all. Yeah, it's been a while. We stood there for a beat longer than we should have, awkwardly staring at each other, unsure of what to say next. The past had come rushing back, memories I had carefully tucked away resurfacing. I tried to push them down, but they were there like a floodgate opening, reminding me of who I had been. The girl I was before I became someone's wife and mother. I've been meaning to track you down, Liam said suddenly, his eyes gleaming. I heard you got married and had a kid. Daniel, right? Yeah, I said, nodding. Daniel and I have a little one. Maximum. He's almost for now. He smiled, but there was something in his gaze that made my heart flutter, something warm and intimate, like he was seeing right through me, as if he knew things I hadn't even admitted to myself. Well, I'm glad you're doing well, he said, his voice dropping a little lower. There was a shift in the air, something that made me feel as if I were suddenly very aware of my own pulse, of the weight of my wedding ring on my finger. We talked for a few minutes more, exchanged pleasantries, and before long, he mentioned he had to go. The conversation, though brief, had ignited something I hadn't felt in years. When Liam smiled one last time and turned to leave, I felt an undeniable tug in my chest, a longing I hadn't anticipated. As I walked back to my car, my thoughts were scattered. I could still feel his presence, still hear the timbre of his voice in my head. It was strange. I didn't want to admit it, but a part of me missed him, missed the person I had been when I was with him. Life had changed so much since then. I was no longer the girl he had once kissed beneath the bleachers or the one who had whispered secrets to him in the middle of the night. I was a mother, a wife, someone who was supposed to have it all together. But as I pulled out of the parking lot and headed home, my heart was restless. I told myself it was nothing. Just a chance encounter. That's all it was. But as I walked through the door of our house, the scent of Max's toys and the warmth of Daniel's absent embrace, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside of me had been stirred, something I couldn't quite name, something that had lain dormant for so long. I tried to ignore it, telling myself I was overthinking. After all, I had everything I needed, right? But as I put Max down for his nap and sat in the quiet of the house, I couldn't stop thinking about Liam. About us. And for the first time in a long time, I wondered if I'd made the right choices. It started so innocently, or at least, that's what I told myself. After that chance encounter in the grocery store, it didn't take long for Liam and me to reconnect. He found me on social media, sent a casual message, and within days, we were exchanging texts. "How have you been? What's life like now?" The same questions we'd asked each other in that brief moment when we first saw each other, only this time, we had the time to answer. Our conversations were light at first, nostalgic, almost. We talked about high school memories, the small things that had made us laugh back then. The way the halls always smelled of cafeteria food and cheap cologne, how we used to sneak out for late-night walks beneath the stars. It felt so comfortable. Safe, even. Like we were picking up from where we'd left off all those years ago, when life was simpler and we had nothing to worry about except each other. At first, I didn't think it would lead to anything more. After all, I was married now. I had Daniel, my solid, dependable husband. We had a life, a family. But with every message, every conversation, something stirred inside of me. I couldn't stop thinking about Liam. The way he smiled, the way his eyes had looked when he'd seen me that day in the store. The way he remembered every little detail about me, like he'd never forgotten a thing. And I realized, somewhere deep inside, that I hadn't forgotten him either. We met again, just for coffee, nothing more. At least, that was the plan. But when I walked into the cafe and saw Liam sitting by the window, looking exactly the same but with a new confidence about him, something inside of me shifted. It wasn't just a friendly reunion anymore. There was tension in the air, a magnetic pull I couldn't resist. "I miss talking to you, Soph," he said, his voice low, almost intimate. "You always knew how to make me laugh." I didn't know what to say to that. My throat tightened, and for a moment, I thought I might choke on the guilt that was already bubbling up inside me. But the warmth in his voice, the way he looked at me, it made everything else fade into the background. We spent hours talking that day. He told me about his life since high school, how he'd struggled, how he'd found his footing again, how he'd started working with someone who'd really helped him turn his career around. He sounded so different from the boy I'd known. More grown up, more assured. But there was still that same spark in him, that same wildness that had drawn me to him all those years ago. And I was drawn to it again, even though I told myself I shouldn't be. After that meeting, we started seeing each other more often. I justified it by telling myself that it was just catching up. Nothing more. But with every meeting, it became harder to convince myself of that. I began to notice little things, how he touched my arm when he spoke, how his voice softened when he said my name, how my heart raced every time I looked into his eyes. And soon, it wasn't just casual anymore. We'd meet after work, sometimes even at the little park near my house. It was always under the guise of catching up, but each time, our conversations grew more intimate. The things we shared felt like secrets, things that only we understood. It felt like I was falling into something I couldn't control, something I didn't want to stop. The first time it happened, I didn't even see it coming. One moment, we were sitting together, laughing about some inside joke from high school, and the next, his hand was on mine. It was so gentle, so natural, that I couldn't pull away. He leaned in slowly, his lips brushing against mine before I could even think. I wanted to pull back, I really did. But I didn't. It was like all the years, all the memories of our time together, came rushing back. The passion we had once shared, the connection that had always been so effortless, was right there, just like it had been when we were teenagers. And before I could stop myself, I kissed him back. The guilt hit me instantly, crashing down on me like a tidal wave. I pulled away, my heart pounding in my chest. We shouldn't, I started, but he was already kissing me again, this time more urgently, more desperately. And I couldn't stop. I didn't want to. It wasn't long before what had been a one-time mistake became something more. I tried to convince myself that I was just seeking closure, that it didn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew it wasn't true. What I was doing was wrong, but the thrill of it, of being with him again, of feeling desired in a way that had been missing for so long, was intoxicating. I couldn't help it. The connection between us felt so raw, so real, that I was willing to ignore the nagging voice in my head telling me that I was hurting Daniel, that I was breaking the trust we'd built together. At home, things started to shift. Daniel noticed the changes in me, how I seemed distracted, how I was always on my phone, how I couldn't seem to focus. But I brushed off his concerns with a smile and a vague excuse, pretending everything was fine. And he let it go, too. He trusted me, and I hated myself for betraying that trust. But as each day passed, the guilt gnawed at me. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Someone I had never wanted to be. And yet, I couldn't stop. The lie had become so much a part of my life that it was hard to imagine a way out. The affair had begun, and it was only going to get harder to untangle myself from it. The day had been like any other. I had kissed Daniel goodbye that morning, made him his coffee, sent him off to work like I had 1,000 times before. I had told myself, convincingly, for a while, that everything was fine. But as the days dragged on, the guilt weighed heavier, crushing me in ways I didn't know how to handle. Liam and I had been meeting in secret for weeks now. What started as innocent meetings turned into stolen moments, each one more dangerous than the last. My heart was in chaos, torn between the life I had built with Daniel and this reckless passion that I had found again with Liam. I knew it was wrong. Every cell in my body screamed that it was wrong. But I couldn't stop. That evening, I met Liam at a small bar in the city, a dimly lit place where we could talk without the risk of anyone recognizing us. But tonight felt different. The air was thick, charged with tension. I could feel it before he even said anything. "Sophia, we need to talk," Liam said, his voice unusually cold. I looked at him, uneasy. "What's going on?" He took a long sip from his glass, eyes focused on the ice cubes that clinked in his drink. The silence between us felt too heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Finally, he looked at me, his gaze piercing. "You know, I've been thinking about all this. About us." My stomach churned. I hated how he could make everything feel so intense, how he could twist things so easily. "Liam, what do you mean?" He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "It's funny, really. How you never realized who I've been working for all this time." I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" He smirked, like he knew something I didn't. "Your husband. Daniel. He's my new manager." My breath hitched. The world around me seemed to tilt, like the ground was slipping beneath my feet. "What? No, that can't be true," I stammered. But Liam's smile grew wider, more sinister. "Oh, it's true, Soft Daniel's been running the show at the firm for a while now. I'm not exactly in a position to say no to him, especially now that I've got all this on you." My mind was reeling. Daniel? Daniel, the man I'd vowed to spend my life with, the man I had promised everything to, was connected to Liam in this way. How had I not seen this coming? Liam's words echoed in my mind, and the magnitude of the revelation crashed over me like a wave. My affair with Liam, something I had tried to keep hidden, was now more dangerous than I could have ever imagined. I had been living a lie, but this was a betrayal on a level I couldn't even comprehend. I began, choking on my own words. "You knew? You knew this whole time?" Liam nodded, unfazed by the shock written all over my face. "Of course. I didn't want to say anything at first. I thought you should be the one to figure it out. But now, well, things are a little more complicated, don't you think?" A cold sweat broke out across my skin. What was he saying? Was he threatening me? Complicated? What do you mean, Liam? I asked, my voice trembling despite myself. He leaned back in his chair, eyes glinting with something dark and calculating. Well, you see, I've got something over you now. And I think it's only fair that you return the favor. My heart stopped. What do you want from me? Liam's expression hardened. I want more time with you. More meetings. More us. And if you don't comply, well, let's just say I won't hesitate to tell Daniel the truth. The world around me seemed to blur. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This was blackmail. This was manipulation on a level I wasn't prepared for. You can't, I started, but my voice faltered. The fear was too overwhelming. Oh, but I can, Liam interrupted smoothly, his tone final. Don't forget, I know everything. And I know how to make it all fall apart. So, what's it going to be, Sophia? You keep meeting me, and I keep this between us. Or you tell Daniel, and you lose everything. The choice was impossible. I couldn't lose my family. I couldn't lose Daniel, my child, everything we had built. But the guilt that I had been living with, the secret that was poisoning me, was nothing compared to the fear of what would happen if Daniel found out in the way Liam suggested. You're threatening me? I whispered, my voice hollow with disbelief. Liam's smile was chilling. I'm just giving you a little choice, that's all. A little reminder that I hold the power now. I'm not going anywhere, Soph. Not until I get what I want. My world felt like it was crumbling. How had I let it get this far? How had I allowed myself to become so tangled in lies, in betrayal, in a situation that seemed beyond redemption? I sat there, frozen, unable to make sense of it all. The man I had once loved, the man who had meant so much to me, was now holding my life in his hands. And the man I had married, the man I had promised to love and cherish, was unknowingly standing in the middle of all this, a pawn in a game I had never meant to play. I was trapped. There was no way out. Not now. I thought I could fix it. I thought if I just pushed Liam away, distance myself from the madness, I could go back to my normal life. I was wrong. No matter how much I tried to untangle the web of lies I had spun, the threads of betrayal were already too tightly knotted. The tension in our house had been growing for weeks. Daniel's eyes were sharp, his questions subtle but constant. He hadn't confronted me yet, but I could feel him watching, noticing the small things, the way I flinched when he brushed against my arm, the way I fumbled with my phone when he walked into the room, the way I couldn't meet his eyes. I thought I could hide it, but the truth always has a way of seeping through the cracks, no matter how carefully you try to seal them. It was late one night when Daniel finally did what I had been dreading. We were sitting in the living room after our child had gone to bed. The silence between us had become thick, uncomfortable. Daniel's gaze was intense, but there was something else in it, a quiet suspicion. I need to talk to you, Daniel said, his voice low but firm. I swallowed, trying to keep my composure. About what? He didn't answer immediately. He just stared at me, as if he were trying to read the words that I had hidden from him, the words that I had never said out loud. I felt my heart pound in my chest, my palms clammy. Finally, he spoke, the words falling like a hammer. I know. The world around me seemed to freeze. What do you mean you know? My voice cracked, a desperate attempt to mask the terror swelling inside me. I know about you and Liam, he said quietly, almost painfully, his face hardening. I found the emails. The messages. I saw the pictures. I know everything. The blood drained from my face. I felt like I was suffocating. The walls, the air, everything closed in on me. I had no more lies left to tell. No more hiding. The truth was out. And now there was nothing I could do to undo it. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. I could only shake my head, unable to fully comprehend the devastation I had caused. The betrayal I had allowed to happen, The man I had pledged my life to, he knew. And all I could do was sit there, paralyzed by the consequences. Why, Sophia? Daniel's voice broke through the silence, rough with pain. Why did you do this? Was I not enough? Did I not give you everything you needed? Tears welled in my eyes, and my chest tightened with the weight of his words. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen. It just did. He shook his head, his expression a mixture of disbelief and anguish. You could have come to me. We could have worked through whatever was wrong, but instead, you chose to lie. You chose him over us. I never wanted to hurt you, I whispered, the words barely a breath. I never meant for any of this to happen. Daniel stood up, his hands clenched at his sides. I don't know who you are anymore, Sophia. He paused, taking a deep breath, trying to steady himself. I thought I knew you. I thought we had a life together, a family. But now I don't know if I can ever trust you again. The air between us felt like it was charged with 1,000 unspoken words, but none of them could undo the damage. None of them could put us back in the place we once were. He turned away, and I watched him walk toward the door, his steps heavy with finality. I wanted to run after him, to beg him to stay, to apologize over and over. But I knew, deep down, that there was nothing left to say. I'm sorry, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't look back. The next few days were a blur of pain and confusion. Daniel moved out of our bedroom, his presence now a distant echo in our house. We spoke only in fragments, small exchanges about our child, about logistics, but nothing that mattered. There was no more us. There was only the painful reality of what I had destroyed. Daniel, though heartbroken, made sure to use his influence. He terminated Liam's employment, shutting down any leverage he had over me. But the damage was done. The affair, the lies, the betrayal, it had all shattered the foundation of our marriage. In the weeks that followed, we settled into an uneasy routine. Daniel insisted on keeping things civil for the sake of our child. I saw him, sometimes, for brief moments, when he came to pick up our son or drop him off. There was no warmth between us anymore. Only silence. Only the heavy, suffocating weight of everything that had been broken. One afternoon, I found myself sitting alone in the park, watching my child play on the swings. I hadn't realized how much time had passed until the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the playground. As I sat there, lost in thought, I couldn't help but reflect on everything I had lost. My marriage. My family. My self-respect. All of it had been torn apart by a series of choices I had made, choices that I could never take back. I wondered if there would ever be a way back from this. If I would ever be able to redeem myself in Daniel's eyes. But deep down, I knew the truth. Redemption wasn't something that came easily. It wasn't something I could hope for, it was something I would have to earn, one day at a time. And as I watched my child, unaware of the storm that had torn apart our lives, I realized that the journey of rebuilding wasn't just about my marriage. It was about me, about finding myself again, about learning how to forgive myself, and, maybe one day, finding a way to heal. But for now, all I could do was watch the swings move in the breeze, the sound of my child's laughter a distant echo in my heart. And I wondered if I would ever be whole again. It's been months since that devastating night. The pain has not entirely faded, but I've learned to live with it, slowly, carefully. I've started therapy to help me understand the choices I made and the consequences that followed. Every day is a small step toward healing, and while things may never be the same, I'm learning how to navigate the shattered pieces of my past. Daniel and I have found a new normal. We share custody of our child, and our interactions are cordial, focused solely on our little one's well-being. We've learned to coexist, but the warmth that once defined our marriage is a distant memory. I can't change that, but I've come to accept it. The life I thought I had, the love I thought I could rely on, it's gone. But I'm still here. And I'm still trying to find redemption, one day at a time. I often think about Liam, the man who was once a spark of passion in my life, but now just a distant figure in the rearview mirror. He's no longer a part of my story, and I've come to realize that some chapters in our lives need to be closed, no matter how difficult it is. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I will keep moving forward. For myself. For my child. For the chance at a second chance that doesn't come easily but still remains possible. If you've enjoyed this emotional journey and want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Stay connected, share your thoughts, and let's continue to explore the complexities of life, love, and the paths we take. Thank you for being a part of this journey. See you in the next story. It's Anonymous Stories.